The sun hung low over the distant horizon, casting a golden hue across the ocean that stretched endlessly before them. A strange pull tugged at the protagonist's chest, an inexplicable force that beckoned them forward. The island appeared out of nowhere, as though it had risen from the very depths of time itself. Fog swirled around its edges, and the trees that lined its shores seemed to whisper secrets in the wind. The air smelled different here, rich, ancient, and laden with the promise of discovery. At the foot of a jagged cliff, they could see the faint shimmer of an otherworldly aura, like the very fabric of time had been unraveled and rewoven in this place. As the protagonist stepped onto the land, the ground beneath them felt unnervingly soft, as if the island was alive, watching them. "This place," they whispered, "it's like nothing I've ever seen or experienced." The sensation was overwhelming. This island held secrets that reached beyond time, and its mysteries beckoned them to uncover them. A voice, as if from nowhere, echoed in the protagonist's mind. "This is the isle where time runs backward," it whispered, its tone both comforting and chilling. "Here, the past and future intertwine, and nothing is as it seems." The words hung in the air like a heavy fog, and the protagonist's heart began to race. Time? Time? Running backward? It seemed impossible, yet here they were, standing on an island that defied all logic. Their thoughts raced, trying to process what they had just heard, yet no matter how hard they tried, they couldn't shake the feeling that everything around them was shifting, morphing, as though the island was changing its form before their very eyes. The shore that had seemed so stable moments ago now appeared to ripple like water, as if the fabric of reality itself was bending. There was something about this place, something ancient, that made it feel like the rules of time no longer applied. Was this the beginning of something extraordinary, or had they stumbled upon a place better left untouched? The wind began to pick up, carrying with it an unsettling chill. The protagonist's senses were heightened, every whisper of the breeze sending shivers down their spine. As they gazed at the strange island, the landscape began to shift subtly, as if time itself was playing tricks on them. The trees seemed to stretch and shrink with every blink of the eye, the waves crashing against the shore, and then pulling back to a distant calm in the blink of an eye. The ground underfoot trembled slightly, and the air became thick with the scent of earth and salt. Then, from the shadows of the trees, a figure appeared, a figure who seemed both familiar and foreign. With flowing robes and an air of ancient wisdom, the mysterious being stood silently, watching them. "You have come," the figure said, voice soft but powerful, "and the island will show you its truths. But be warned, for not all who seek answers are ready for them." The protagonist's heart skipped a beat as they took a step back. Who are you?" they asked, their voice trembling. The figure's eyes glimmered with an ancient, knowing light. "I am the guardian of time," the figure replied, their voice echoing in the stillness of the air. "I am here to guide you through the trials that await. But remember, the path you walk is not one for the faint-hearted. Time is not linear here. It bends, folds, and rewrites itself in ways that no mortal can fully comprehend." The words sent a cold shiver through the protagonist, but something deep inside them stirred. There was a sense of inevitability, as if this journey had already been written, as if they had been chosen for a purpose far greater than they could understand. They had no choice but to follow, to embrace whatever truth the island had to offer. The figure extended a hand toward the protagonist, a gesture both inviting and commanding. "Follow me," the guardian of time said, "and I will show you the first lesson of this isle." With every step they took, the island seemed to shift around them, trees growing taller, the ground beneath them pulsing with a strange energy. The air grew thicker, heavier with every moment, and the very fabric of reality seemed to bend, like they were walking through a dream. "Do not resist what you see," the guardian continued, "for resistance only tightens the hold that time has over you." The protagonist hesitated, then took a step forward. The moment their foot touched the earth, the world around them seemed to unravel, revealing glimpses of the past and future intertwined. The first lesson had begun. The island's mysteries began to weigh heavily on the protagonist's mind. The voice they had heard earlier, the cryptic whisper of time, lingered in their thoughts. This is where the past and future intertwine, it echoed over and over. But how could that be possible? Time, the one thing that everyone believed to be linear, now seemed to bend and twist like an ancient river changing course. As the protagonist walked deeper into the island's heart, memories, distant, forgotten, began to resurface, floating to the surface of their mind like long-forgotten dreams. Faces, names, moments they had long buried in the recesses of their memory now appeared before them, clear as day. "What does this mean?" they whispered to themselves, unable to fully grasp the reality around them. But one thing was certain, the past was not behind them here. It was alive, pressing in on them, and the island seemed to whisper its dark secrets. "The past is never truly gone," they muttered, barely believing their own words. "It's only waiting to be remembered." As the fog parted slightly, the protagonist found themselves standing in a small clearing, the air thick with a strange energy. In the center, a large stone circle stood, ancient runes carved into its surface. The ground around it was cracked and dry, as if something powerful had once dwelled there. As they approached, a vision flooded their mind, a memory of a time long past. They saw themselves younger, laughing with friends around a bonfire, unaware of the storm that would soon disrupt their world. Their face, once full of joy, now seemed a distant reflection, a different person entirely. The vision shifted, and the protagonists saw themselves standing alone, the weight of sorrow heavy on their shoulders. The words of the guardian of time echoed again, "Time is not linear here." The vision dissolved, and they were left standing in the clearing, heart racing. "But why?" they whispered to the empty air. "Why am I seeing these things now?" The island was playing tricks on them, twisting the fabric of their memories, and creating a world where the boundaries between past, present, and future were impossible to discern. The protagonists stumbled forward, breath shallow, as the trees around them seemed to shift and change, stretching toward the sky, and then curling back in on themselves. It was as if the very island was alive, bending time and space to its will. The sound of voices, faint, like whispers carried on the wind, began to echo in their ears. "You must let go," one whispered. "You cannot change what has been," another voice urged. The protagonist's chest tightened as the weight of their regrets pressed down on them. How much had they sacrificed to reach this point? What had they lost? A single tear fell down their cheek, but there was no time to dwell on it. They had to keep moving forward. But the island, it seemed, was not going to let them forget their past so easily. Every step felt like a battle against the overwhelming force of time. The island had a grip on them, pulling at the very threads of their past, exposing their deepest regrets. A sudden shift in the air made the protagonist pause. They turned to face an ancient temple, its stone walls overgrown with ivy and moss. The doors, massive and imposing, stood ajar, as if inviting them to enter. The air surrounding it was thick with anticipation. With every passing moment, the protagonist felt the weight of time grow heavier, as if the very building had been standing there for centuries, waiting for someone to discover its secrets. As they stepped closer to the temple, memories of a long-forgotten encounter flooded their mind, a conversation they'd had years ago with someone who had long since disappeared from their life. "The past will come for you," they had warned, "and it will never let go." The words now seemed like a prophecy fulfilled. But now, standing at the threshold of the temple, the protagonist could feel the pull of destiny, the call to uncover what had been hidden for so long. The temple's doors creaked open with a sound that seemed to echo through the very bones of the island. Stepping inside, the protagonist was met with a dimly lit chamber. At the center, a massive stone altar sat, surrounded by symbols and carvings that pulsed with faint, glowing energy. The walls were covered in murals depicting scenes of ancient rituals, of sacrifices, of time itself being manipulated. The air was thick with the scent of incense, and the silence was so profound that it felt as though the walls were holding their breath. As they walked deeper into the temple, the protagonist felt a presence, a watchful, ancient energy that seemed to observe their every move. The visions of their past began to resurface again, this time more vivid, more intense. They saw moments of happiness, moments of heartbreak, all intertwined. "What is this place?" they whispered, the weight of the past pressing in on them. "What does it want from me?" The realization hit the protagonist like a sudden storm. The island was not just a place. It was a force, a living entity that operated outside the constraints of time. They had thought their arrival was by chance, a mere accident in their journey, but now they understood it was no accident at all. The island had been waiting for them. Time here didn't move in a straight line. It spiraled, curved, and folded in on itself, carrying all moments within it, past, present, and future, all tangled together like threads in a great cosmic tapestry. The protagonist felt themselves pulled deeper into the island's mysterious grip as memories began to flood their mind. They saw glimpses of their past, their mistakes, their regrets, and with each passing image it became clear, everything was connected. "This place," they whispered, their voice trembling, "this island, it is not just showing me my past, it's showing me all of it, the cycle, the endless loop." The island's whispers grew louder, as if it could read the protagonist's thoughts. "You are trapped," the voice said, echoing in their mind. "Trapped in the cycle of your own making." The words resonated deep within, and the weight of them seemed to press against the protagonist's chest, making it hard to breathe. "What do you mean?" they asked, their voice shaking. The island responded not with words but with visions, flashes of their past selves, lost moments of joy and sorrow, pieces of their life scattered like broken shards. Each vision was a reminder that the protagonist had been living in a loop, unable to break free from their past decisions. The truth was undeniable now. "I have been repeating the same mistakes over and over," they thought, watching as the visions unfolded before them. "I've never truly moved forward. I've never let go." The weight of this revelation hit the protagonist with the force of a tidal wave. It was as though the very fabric of their reality had been torn open, revealing the truth of their existence. Their life had been an endless loop, a cycle of decisions and consequences that they could never escape. The island seemed to echo this realization, its very air humming with the energy of their past and future intertwining. They could see it now, the endless cycle of cause and effect, the endless repetition of joy, sorrow, and regret. "How do I break free?" the protagonist asked aloud, their voice filled with desperation. The island, in response, offered no simple answer, only a deep, pulsing silence that seemed to stretch on forever. The truth was clear: they were trapped, bound to the island, bound to the cycle of time that had no beginning or end. There was no escape, only acceptance. For a moment, the protagonist stood still, overwhelmed by the weight of their own existence. The island pulsed with life around them, as if the land itself was watching, waiting for them to understand. Guardian of Time's words came back to them. "Time is not linear here. It bends and folds. And you must learn to move within it, or be consumed by it." The truth of the Guardian's warning was becoming clear. To escape the cycle, the protagonist would need to confront their past, embrace their regrets and mistakes, not as chains that bound them, but as lessons that had shaped them. They had to stop resisting, stop trying to change what had already happened. The only way to move forward was to accept the past, to let go of the illusion of control. "I can break free," the protagonist whispered, their voice steady now. "But only if I stop fighting time, stop fighting myself." The island's energy seemed to resonate with the protagonist's acceptance. The air grew still, and the tension in their chest eased slightly. For the first time since their arrival, they felt a sense of clarity. The truth of the cycle was now undeniable, but it no longer filled them with dread. Instead, there was a deep, quiet understanding that time was not something to be conquered, but something to be embraced. The past was not a weight, but a part of them, a thread in the fabric of their existence. The future was not something to fear, but a place where the lessons of the past could guide them. They closed their eyes and let the island's energy wash over them, feeling a sense of peace they had never known. "I am ready," the protagonist said softly, a gentle smile touching their lips. "I am ready to move forward." The air around the protagonists seemed to hum with an ancient energy as they stood at the foot of an immense towering structure that had suddenly appeared before them. It was a temple of sorts, its stone walls covered in intricate carvings that seemed to shift and change, as if time itself was etched into the stones. The protagonist felt an undeniable pull toward it, a connection that was both strange and familiar. "This is where it begins," the voice of the guardian whispered in their mind. The temple's entrance loomed before them, dark and imposing, but something within the protagonist urged them forward. Their heart raced with anticipation and fear. As they stepped toward the door, they realized that this was the final test, the trial that would reveal the truth of their journey, the heart of their soul. "I must face myself," the protagonist murmured, knowing that the path ahead would force them to confront their greatest fears and desires. The moment the protagonist stepped inside, they were met with silence. The temple was vast, its walls lined with towering statues of unknown figures, their eyes hollow, but filled with an overwhelming sense of knowledge. The air was thick with the scent of incense, and the faint glow of light emanated from the cracks in the stone floor. As the protagonist ventured deeper into the temple, a vision suddenly enveloped them. They found themselves standing at a crossroads, their past and future stretching out before them like two diverging paths. The road behind them was marked by their regrets, their failures, the mistakes that had shaped them. The road ahead was obscured, unclear, but full of potential. "Which path will you choose?" a voice echoed, one that seemed to come from within themselves. The realization struck them. The path forward was not predetermined, it was theirs to create. But to do so, they would need to let go of the past completely. Only then would they be free. The protagonist stood frozen at the crossroads, their mind racing. The weight of the decision before them was overwhelming. To leave the past behind meant confronting everything they had ever known, everything they had ever been. Yet, standing there in the cold silence of the temple, the truth began to dawn on them. No matter how hard they tried, they couldn't undo the past. What was done was done. They could never return to the person they were before. The road behind them, with all its pain and loss, was part of who they were. And it was time to stop running from it. "I don't need to forget it," the protagonist whispered, their voice shaking. "I need to accept it." As they spoke those words, the darkness around them seemed to lift, the light in the temple growing brighter. The road ahead, though still uncertain, began to reveal itself, inviting them to move forward with newfound clarity and understanding. As the light in the temple brightened, the walls began to shift. The statues, once cold and distant, seemed to animate, their eyes filled with wisdom and understanding. The protagonist's journey had come full circle, and now the temple was guiding them toward the final trial, acceptance. "You have seen the truth," the guardian's voice echoed, "but the final step is yours alone to take." With each step they took deeper into the temple, the atmosphere grew lighter. The weight that had been pressing on them for so long, the burden of their doubts and fears, seemed to lift with each movement. They were no longer a prisoner of their past or their regrets. They were free. Standing at the center of the temple, the protagonist closed their eyes, taking a deep breath. The final revelation had come. The key to freedom was not in changing the past, but in embracing it. They had the power to shape the future, to step forward without fear. As the final rays of light enveloped the protagonist, they felt a deep sense of peace settle over them. The journey had been long and arduous, but it had led them here to this moment of clarity. The temple, now transformed into a place of illumination, stood as a testament to their growth. The past, once a source of pain and regret, had become a stepping stone. With every step, the protagonist had shed the layers of their former self, embracing their mistakes and learning from them. Now, with the future ahead of them, the possibilities seemed endless. "I am ready," the protagonist whispered, their voice filled with calm determination. They had embraced their past, understood its lessons, and were now prepared to step into the unknown. The door of the temple opened, revealing a path bathed in soft, golden light. The journey ahead was theirs to take. With every step, the protagonist felt a deeper sense of clarity. The weight of their journey, the burden of their past, had been lifted, yet something even more profound awaited them. They stood now at the edge of a vast forest, the trees stretching into the horizon, their branches reaching for the sky. A soft breeze danced through the air, carrying with it the scent of fresh earth and new beginnings. This was the moment they had been waiting for, the moment of rebirth. "I've let go," they whispered, almost in disbelief. "I've truly let go." The island, once a place of confusion and suffering, had now transformed into a place of freedom and transformation. Time, no longer a chain, had become a fluid force they could move within. The protagonist smiled softly, feeling the connection to the earth beneath their feet, to the wind on their face, and to the sky above them. "I am no longer bound," they said. "I am free." The path before them was clear, but it was not without its challenges. As they ventured deeper into the forest, the air became thick with the scent of damp earth, and the trees grew taller, their trunks thick with age. The protagonist moved forward, each step an affirmation of their decision to embrace the present. They could feel the weight of the past pushing against them, but it no longer held any power. The past, with all its regrets, had become a part of them, a lesson that had shaped who they were. "I've accepted it," they whispered, each word feeling like a release. "I've accepted what I was, and what I've become." The deeper they walked into the forest, the lighter their heart felt, and with every step, they moved further away from the shadows of their past. They were not running from it. They were embracing it, carrying it forward into the future. The journey ahead would be theirs to shape. As the protagonist ventured deeper into the heart of the forest, a sense of peace washed over them. The sound of birds chirping, the rustle of leaves in the wind, and the steady rhythm of their footsteps became a comforting symphony. It was as if the earth itself was speaking to them, reassuring them that they were on the right path. They paused for a moment, taking in the beauty of the world around them. The forest, once an obstacle to be overcome, now felt like a sanctuary, a place where they could breathe freely and be themselves. They closed their eyes for a moment, savoring the tranquility. "I'm not lost," they thought. "I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be." The vision of their past no longer clouded their mind. It had become a distant memory, fading further with each step. Now, only the present remained, pure, untainted, and full of possibility. The journey was not yet over, but the protagonist felt an overwhelming sense of gratitude. The trials they had faced had transformed them, reshaped them into someone new, someone who was no longer burdened by the past. They had shed the layers of doubt and regret, stepping forward into a future that was full of unknowns, but also full of potential. "I don't know what lies ahead," they said softly, "but I am ready." There was no fear now, only anticipation for the road ahead. Every moment had led to this, and now, the future was theirs to create. As they walked forward, the trees seemed to open up before them, revealing a wide open meadow. The horizon stretched out, vast and inviting, and the protagonist knew that the world was waiting for them. The choices they made from this point forward would be their own, and they would no longer be limited by the weight of their past. Standing at the edge of the meadow, the protagonist gazed at the wide expanse of land before them. The world seemed to stretch out infinitely, full of possibility and promise. They took a deep breath, feeling the air fill their lungs, feeling alive in a way they had never felt before. "I am no longer bound by time," they whispered. "I am the master of my own path." The wind blew gently, carrying with it a sense of peace and freedom. The journey had not been easy, but it had been necessary. It had shaped them, made them stronger, and shown them the truth, that they were the ones who had the power to change their own story. As they stood there, taking in the beauty of the world around them, they realized that the real journey was just beginning. With a final contented breath, the protagonist stepped forward, embracing the future with open arms, ready to write the next chapter of their life. The air was thick with tension as the protagonist approached the final trial. The sky had darkened, and the landscape had shifted once again. Where once there had been lush greenery, there was now a barren wasteland, an endless stretch of cracked earth under a stormy sky. In the distance, a towering figure stood, shrouded in shadow, radiating an overwhelming aura of power. The figure's eyes glowed with an unsettling intensity. This was the test they had been waiting for, the one that would prove if they were truly ready to step into their new life. "You have come far," the figure said, their voice echoing across the barren landscape. "But you have yet to face your greatest fear, the fear that lies within you." The protagonist felt their heart race as the realization hit them. This was not just a physical battle, it was a battle for their soul. It was a confrontation with everything they had ever feared, ever doubted, ever regretted. The figure raised their hand, and with a single movement, the ground beneath the protagonist's feet began to tremble. The air became thick with pressure, and the protagonist could feel the weight of every choice they had ever made bearing down on them. The memories of their past, the mistakes, the regrets, came flooding back in vivid detail, each one a sharp sting to their heart. "You are bound by these," the figure said, their voice like thunder. "You cannot escape what you have done. It will always follow you." The protagonist staggered, their knees weak under the weight of the words, but in the deepest part of their being something shifted. "I've let go of the past," they said, their voice firm, despite the doubt that lingered in their chest. "I've accepted it. I am not defined by my mistakes." The storm raged around them, but the protagonist stood tall, facing the figure without fear, ready to face the ultimate test. The dark figure laughed, a sound that echoed like 1,000 voices, full of mockery. "You think you can escape your past?" they asked, their voice dripping with disdain. "You think you can simply move forward, leaving behind everything that has shaped you?" The protagonist's heart pounded, and for a moment, doubt crept in. The past had always been a shadow, always there, no matter how hard they tried to outrun it. But then something deep inside them stirred, a spark of realization. "I don't need to escape it," they said quietly, their voice gaining strength. "I need to embrace it. The past is not my enemy. It is a part of me." As the words left their lips, the figure faltered, its powerful form flickering. The protagonist took a deep breath, feeling the weight of the past, but no longer allowing it to control them. They were no longer running from it, they were moving forward with it. And that was their victory. The dark figure's form began to fade, its power dissipating as the protagonist's words echoed in the air. The storm above them slowly subsided, the oppressive atmosphere lifting as light began to break through the clouds. The landscape around them, once barren and desolate, slowly began to transform. The earth healed, the cracks closing, and the once dead trees began to bloom with vibrant life. The protagonist stood in the center, breathing deeply, their heart finally at peace. "I have faced my fears," they whispered, their voice filled with quiet triumph. "I have embraced my past, and in doing so, I have freed myself." The figure was gone now, leaving only the remnants of its power. The island had tested them, pushed them to their limits, but they had emerged stronger. They had completed the ultimate trial, and in doing so, had transformed not just their present, but their entire future. The world around them was now full of endless possibility. As the last traces of darkness faded away, the protagonist felt an overwhelming sense of peace. The trial was over. They had faced their past, their fears, and their doubts, and emerged victorious. The island, once a place of uncertainty and suffering, had become a place of growth, of understanding. "I am free," the protagonist whispered, feeling the weight of their transformation settle within them. "I am finally free." The path ahead, once clouded with doubt, now stretched out before them, wide and open. The protagonist took a deep breath, feeling the warmth of the sun on their face. "This is only the beginning," they thought, a quiet smile playing on their lips. "The journey I once feared is now the journey I choose." With one final purposeful step, the protagonist began to walk forward, ready to embrace whatever came next, no longer burdened by the past, but free to create their own future. The sun was setting, casting long shadows across the land. The protagonist stood at the edge of a cliff, looking out over the vast landscape. Their journey had taken them far, but now, in this quiet moment, they could finally see the truth. Everything they had been through, the trials, the challenges, the moments of doubt, had led them to this place. The island was no longer a place of suffering or confusion, but a place of peace and clarity. "I understand now," they whispered softly, their voice carrying in the cool evening air. The path was never about escaping the past, but learning to live with it, to accept it, and to move forward. The wind picked up, as if to agree, and the protagonist closed their eyes, feeling the presence of the world around them. They had finally found the wisdom they had been seeking, not in some grand revelation, but in the quiet acceptance of everything they had experienced. As the sun dipped below the horizon, the protagonist felt a sense of profound stillness settle within them. The journey that had once seemed like an endless struggle now felt like a cycle of growth. Each step, each lesson, each moment of pain had been a part of the greater whole. They had learned that suffering was not a force to be feared, but an integral part of life's unfolding. "I am not perfect," they murmured, their voice steady but filled with understanding. "But I am whole. I am complete." The world around them seemed to pause for a moment, as if acknowledging this deep truth. The air was still, the sky clear, and in the distance, the island stretched out, no longer an enigma, but a part of their soul. They had come to understand that true freedom was not in escaping the past, but in embracing the present, fully and without reservation. The stars began to shine brightly overhead, each one a tiny beacon of light in the vast dark sky. The protagonist stood once more, their heart light with the wisdom they had gained. "Everything is interconnected," they thought. "I am a part of this vast eternal dance, as is everything around me." The past, once a shadow that loomed over them, had now become a source of strength. They no longer carried the weight of their past decisions as a burden, but as a testament to their growth. "I am no longer just a part of time," they whispered. "I am a part of everything, timeless and ever-changing." With this realization, the protagonist felt an overwhelming sense of belonging, not just to themselves, but to the world, to the universe. They were no longer isolated or apart from the cycle of life. They were one with it, and that was the greatest freedom they could ever hope to find. As they gazed out at the infinite expanse of stars, a sense of deep, unshakable peace settled within them. This is the moment, the protagonist thought, the moment of true freedom. They had learned the most important lesson. Peace was not something to be found outside of themselves, but something to be cultivated within. The storm of their inner turmoil had long since passed, and now, in its place, there was calm. "I no longer need to search for answers," they said, their voice quiet and full of finality. "The answers are within me, always have been." The protagonist turned, ready to leave the cliff and step back onto the path ahead. They had completed their journey, and now they would walk it with open eyes, a heart full of wisdom, and a soul at peace. With each step they took, the weight of the past had become lighter, and the future ahead seemed full of endless possibilities. The protagonist's journey was far from over, but they no longer feared what lay ahead. The road ahead was no longer a path filled with obstacles and uncertainty, but a journey to be embraced. With each step, they felt lighter, freer, and more alive than ever before. "I am ready," they whispered, a final affirmation. The journey had shaped them, yes, but it was not the journey that defined them. It was their willingness to embrace it fully, with all its challenges and beauty. "I am ready for what comes next," they said, their voice full of conviction. The future was not something to fear, but something to create, with every choice they made. And with that, the protagonist took one final step, the first step of the rest of their life. The world stretched out before them, a canvas waiting to be painted with the colors of their soul.